Hello, folks. Alex here. This is Alex Unabridged, and today is my January wrap up. So yes, I thought I'd go through what I've been up to in January. So yeah, I'll start with the reading and listening of audiobooks first, and then I'll move on to the writing. If you're more interested in the writing stuff, you can skip ahead. The timestamps will be in the description. But yeah, they'll be divvied up. It'll be divvied up like that. So yes, let's start with the things that I have read. So first up is Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton, which I loved the film of. I like the whole series of films, but the first one just, there's something special about that. It was one of the first films I think I went to in the cinema when I was a kid, and it scared the hell out of me when I was a kid. But then I was a very, very scared kid. I'm still a wuss when it comes to films. But yeah. But I loved it no matter how much it scared me. But yeah, I'd never read the book, and my sister said read the book. The book is different, but it's really good. So I finally got around to reading that, and I did really like it actually. There are some major changes especially in terms of characters, from the book to the film. Like the character of John Hammond is very different in the book. He's far more detestable. There are sort of more detestable characters, and Alan Grant I think I like the film version better. Ellie, I wish there was more of Ellie in the book. I really like Ellie in the film, and the kids in the book are quite different. They've switched the ages around a bit. Tim is the older one in the book, and I really liked Tim in the book. Tim's a really good character actually. I really kind of connected with Tim, whereas Lex in the book, oh, it's like if she'd have got eaten, I really wouldn't have minded. It's one of those where it's just like, how are you still alive at the end of all of this? How have they not just fed you to the dinosaurs? Um, so yeah, she was somewhat irritating. um, but yeah, the setup of it is obviously the same. But the course of events obviously is slightly different. It has to be changed for the film. I think I still prefer the film, but I think that's nostalgia. That's probably plays a big part in that. But I liked the writing. I really liked the tone of how the book opened. Actually, it's kind of got a mystery and a kind of a sort of a darkness to it. Foreboding, I think, is probably the most appropriate term. But I did really enjoy the book, and I will definitely go back and read it again. There were some characters that I just thought, again, from the film versions, like Dr. Malcolm, like in the book is just, you know. But then you've got Jeff Goldblum in the film, who's just brilliant. It's a horrible, really detestable kind of personality, but you kind of love him at the same time. Um, and I have to say, like Dennis Nedry again, like he's kind of one of the villains in the story, but he was a little bit flat in the book. I think it just kind of, again, it might be because you can't help but compare the character in the book to the character that you're so used to seeing in the film, and so yeah, it fell a little bit flat, that character, but not enough to like ruin it, or make me kind of go, oh yeah, no, I don't like this. So yeah, really, 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 really enjoyable read actually, that one. Second, I read The Lottery, the short story by Shirley Jackson. which again I'd seen pop up on various people's lists of, you know, kind of classic horror stories. And I'm not going to say anything about the plot because it's such a short story that, you know, you kind of, it's one of those, you just need to read it. It won't take long. And if you know, if you think about when it was written and stuff, it is quite a, you know, it's again, it's a dark little piece. You know, it's intriguing, but yeah, it's you kind of, as it goes on, you kind of get a sense of where it's going, and it's like, oh, okay. So yeah, it's a quick read. It's a classic of you know, sort of horror writing. So do we call it horror suspense? I don't know really, but it's certainly a classic short story. So yeah, it's well worth that bit of time it takes to read that one. Next up is one that I've very nearly finished now, and that's Pet Semetary, which was a reread, which I hadn't read for 20 years and I hadn't liked the first time around, even though now I am very much a big Stephen King fan. It was the third of his that I'd read, and it put me off his stuff for a bit. But this time around, it's a lot better because I think I'm just older and more life experience, more understanding of the themes in it, like grief. And again, it's an audiobook, and I think that is the way for me to experience horror. It's far more evocative, and it's just much more engaging. And as I say, now I know Stephen King's writing better, and I'm looking for the characters, the character work, as opposed to just a scary plot and some monsters, which is, I think, how I started with Stephen King. I think, yeah, it's much more engaging this time around. So I very nearly finished that. I've only got about half an hour to an hour left of listening time on that one. The other one that I am midway through, and have actually been midway through for quite a while, but I'm determined to finish it eventually, is Solaris by Stanislaw Lem, which I'd heard of as kind of, you know, a classic science fiction book, and liked the sound of the concept. And yeah, it's tough. It's a really tough read. It kind of swings from being really engaging and tense to really I'm trying to get my head around this stuff. Like sort of philosophical, and I like philosophy. You know, I've always been a fan of philosophy, and I've read quite a lot of philosophy over the years, both in, you know, actual philosophical writings by the philosophers, but also, you know, kind of I like philosophy in my fiction, and certainly in my film and TV viewing, that kind of thing. But yeah, it's just quite dense in parts, and not necessarily boring. It's just I can't read much of it at once, and it's not an audiobook, and I don't think I could do it as an audiobook. I think it'd just go straight in one ear and out the other. So I have got it on Kindle, but yeah, it's just taking me a long time because I have to do it in bite-sized chunks and then give myself a little bit of time to just sit with it. So I'm not enjoying it, but it's a little bit more of a mission to get through that one. So when I have finally got through that one, I will talk about it a bit further, and see where I come out, whether I come out liking it or not. At this moment, I'm not entirely sure. I'm probably about 60% into it. Okay, so that is everything that I have read and am currently reading, barring the two that I read for the Adventures in Genre series that I'm doing. So that was Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and Queen Lucia by E.F. Benson, which I did for January is for jokes, so comedy month. So if you want to hear more about those, then Adventures in Genre will be, if it's not already up on the channel, it will be up very soon. So that is my reading / listening for January. I also bought quite a lot of books in January, or got a lot of books, received a lot of books around Christmas, January time, because Christmas and Santa, and you know, Santa brings books and vouchers for books. So I went out and did had a bit of a splurge on books this month. And yeah, if you want to know what I've got in that haul video is also up on the channel. Okay, so that is everything for reading and listening and buying in January. So yes, let's move on to writing. So yeah, writing. I've been really productive actually this month, which is unlike me for January, because I'm generally I'm just like, can't be bothered. It's dark. Just want to hibernate. So yeah, I've actually kind of made it a bit of a mission at New Year actually to go, no, you're gonna crack on with this. You're gonna immerse yourself in BookTube and in getting some shit done basically, and try and, you know, keep out of that kind of mood for January. So I have several book projects that I've kind of been cracking on with. The first one is a professional kind of project. They're all kind of professional in some respects, but this one is definitely connected to stuff that I already do, as you know, for a living as an artist. So this one is it's kind of, I suppose it's sort of travel slash personal experience type thing, hiking adventures basically. A book about my hike of a middle distance trail, about 90, just under 90 miles, called the Slate Trail, which is in Snowdonia, in North Wales, Snowdonia National Park. And it's a reasonably new trail, and it was founded by a local guy who wanted to make a trail that took you through a lot of the old slate works, the slate industry of Wales, because it was a huge slate mining industry at one time. There are very few sort of working quarries left. There are some, and they're big, but there were a lot of much smaller ones as well. And it was one of those industries that got decimated in the 20th century. So late 20th century. So yeah, it doesn't have a lot of that left, but it's still known for its slate, and because of the fact that it was such a huge industry for that area at one time, the landscape is changed by it forever. It is scarred, if you like, by it, but some of those scars I think are beautiful in their own way, in a kind of a melancholic way. So I wanted to go and do this because I'm interested in the history of the country and in the industry, and also I love the landscape of North Wales. So it's one of my favourite places, and I'll probably move there someday. But yeah, so I wanted to go and explore that a bit more, and the trail takes you through lots of different, lots of quieter areas. Snowdonia can get quite busy, and this trail takes you kind of around some of the areas that are much quieter, that you don't see that many people. In fact, I hardly saw anybody while I was walking it. So I'm writing up that. I'm pretty much finished with well, not quite, but very nearly finished with the writing section of that. And it's, you know, it's about my experience as well as it is about the trail itself and the industry, or tying it all together. Um, and Yeah, I'm pretty much done with the writing part of that now, very nearly. And so then I'll move on to the art part, because it will be part written and part illustrated, or kind of graphic design, graphic arts led. So that'll be the next stage of that, is to work in all of the artwork. So that's quite far on now, which is good. Then on the fiction side of things, I've been doing sort of quite dirty drafts for a couple of short stories, horror short stories. I've got some stuff which is set in the landscape near where I live. We're near the Peak District in the UK, just outside of Manchester. So it's kind of, it's moorland. It's dark and gloomy moorland. It can be quite eerie at times, but I love that. It's great. It's bleak. It can be quite bleak, especially on days like today, where it's like the mists down. So yeah, I'm kind of I spend a lot of time out in the hills here, so those stories will be inspired by that. So there's one I'm writing at the moment, which was inspired by a little trip I had up Kinderscout, which is one of the hills. I think it's high enough to call it a mountain. They're not that massive here, but I think it's just high enough to be classed as a mountain. But it's a plateau, so there's a lot of, you can walk around the edges of it, and they're all very interesting in terms of like weird rock formations and stuff, which make kind of great shapes, to kind of see things in. And I was walking along one bit last year, and there's a big boulder in a part of a boulder field, sticking up, that looks exactly like a shark's fin. And I'm terrified of sharks. It's one of my phobias. And so that immediately just sparked something in terms of imagination. So that is the short story that I'm kind of the furthest on with, I guess, is this rock shark, peat shark, terrorizing a family on the moors. So that's kind of the most basic premise of it. But yeah, it'll just be kind of it's fun stuff that I can kind of cut my teeth on, if you like, as a writer, and throw stuff to the walls and see what sticks. So that's the one I'm the most into at the moment, and I've got another one which is also landscape based, and then another couple that are kind of antiquary horror, I guess you'd call it. I really like M.R. James. I got into M.R. James last year. M.R. James ghost stories and kind of horror stories, which are often based around sort of objects of antiquity, and sort of curiosities, curios, things like that, like old coins, or like I really liked the mezzotint. That's one of my favourites. The haunted picture, essentially. So that kind of got me thinking about some other ideas, and so I'm kind of writing another short story at the moment, which is kind of based around an old automaton, because I have a thing about automatons, like the sort of Victorian and sort of early 20th century automatons, because they are creepy as hell. So or they can be. I'm something just kind of kicked off in my head when I was reading M.R. James. So I was like, right, okay, need to write that down. So that's the other one I'm on. The other thing that I've done writing wise last month is just started planning on some flash fiction, which actually will be, there's two that I've done, and they are both part of a bigger project, which is kind of a memoir, but like told through flash fiction. So so it's kind of auto fiction. You know, it is fiction, but it's got strong elements of my experiences in it. They are kind of essentially sort of fictional riffs on memories of mine. So yeah, so I've started planning that and just kind of starting to think about how that can kind of fit together and, you know, be coherent and all that kind of stuff. So that's really early stages, but I have at least started it, which is often the hardest thing. So yes, that is January's wrap up. That's everything I've done. Hopefully I'll get around to more reading in February. January has been a little bit of a busy month, especially with getting going with BookTube. That's taken up quite a bit of my time. I feel like I'm getting a little bit of a more of a handle on, you know, schedule, and, you know, now I've got my head back around editing, because it's been a while since I've done any video editing. Then hopefully that should take less time, and I can devote that other time to reading. So yes, thank you very much for watching. Any questions, etc., etc., stick them in comments, and I will see you again soon, back with more ramblings about bookish things. But for now, from me, that's ta-ra.